Hi there, and welcome to Limitless, the space where your big dreams meet grounded energy and mastering manifestation becomes your new normal. I'm Alyssa Simpson, mindset and manifestation coach, your unorthodox free spirit, and now your newfound permission slip to do life your way. Here, we break the rules by ditching societal norms of the hustle and grind. We embrace flow, alignment, and the bold decision to follow what lights you the fuck up. In each episode, I'll be sharing soul downloads, mindset shifts, energetic upgrades, and raw, authentic stories to help you unlock your magnetism, collapse timelines, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. So if you're ready to remember who you are, trust your desires, embody your highest self, and manifest from your authentic power, it's time to sit back, relax, and get ready to become limitless. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Limitless. It has come to my attention with all of this conversation and talks that I've been having about stepping into your feminine energy, allowing to restfully receive, becoming restfully rich, all of those things, that I am not the most, like, when you close your eyes and think of like the epitome of feminine energy, I am not that. I am not that. And that still causes conversation in my head because I'm like, well, if I'm trying to really step into my feminine energy, like, what do I need to change? What do I need to do? Who do I need to become? Right? Because it's all about embodiment. And the thing that really hit me when I was kind of doing a little bit of self reflection, if you will, is I don't need to change anything about me, who I am, how I am, all those things. But what would be the most important to share is how you can still be in your feminine energy without actually having to change you and who you are and the things that you enjoy and the things that you love. And just to give a very big, broad example for me and myself, I love boy and men humor. I think it's hilarious. I also grew up with a very manly man, and if he was alive today and had social media, he for sure would get banned and canceled and all the things because he's just, your typical born in the 50s dirty pig humor man is what I was raised with. And I think that it's funny. I think that it can be funny. I also know the difference between humor and someone being offensive. So there's that. I also, just side note here, back whenever cancel culture was like alive and well and running everyone's fucking lives, and people were like trying to cancel comedians because they've said things and so fucking stupid, you guys. Like, there is room in the world for humor, even if it's offensive to someone. If it's not being said in an offensive way, why can't it exist? Right? Like, why can't it just be alive and well? There shouldn't have to come like with a disclaimer for every single thing that we think, that we laugh at, that we talk about. Like, we don't have to add disclaimers to everything. And I really do think that a lot of the just new age, new wave, like cancel culture type of stuff is hindering us because it's lowering our ability to relate to one another in different ways through very fun avenues like humor, right? So I really enjoy that type of humor. Like, I love Workaholics is one of my favorite shows. Eastbound and Down is another one of my favorite shows, and both of these shows can be deemed very offensive depending on who's watching, right? Me, I think it's hilarious. I also really love I don't find a whole lot of female comedians funny. There are a few, but majority of them, it's like they base their comedy off of like self-deprecating shit, and I don't think that that's funny. Um, like Joan Rivers famously said that whenever she was born, her mom didn't know if she was the baby or the placenta, and like I don't think that that's funny. I don't think that that's humorous at all. Um, I don't think that Amy Schumer's funny because a lot of her stuff is very self-deprecating. I don't think Chelsea Handler is funny. Um, I could go on and on and on and on, and on, right? That's not the point though. The point is when you're talking about stepping into your feminine energy and you're looking at all these areas of your life and you're like, okay, how am I showing up more masculine? For me, the things that I enjoy, even though they are like, I guess, men dominated things to enjoy, right? That doesn't mean that I cannot also be in my feminine energy, because I think that men humor is funny doesn't mean that I can't be in my feminine energy. Because that I like bands like System of a Down and Disturbed and Tool, that does not also mean that I can't be in my feminine energy, right? There is a really beautiful balance, and the law of gender states that in order to have balance, there has to be both masculine and feminine energy. Not only within relationships, but I truly believe that has to be true for yourself as well. Because if you are not balanced within yourself with the two energies, then I don't necessarily think that you're going to have balance in your life, right? Because at the end of the day, you are everything to you, right? So I believe that I balance both masculine and feminine energy very well, but it's not in the sense of like what I do, who I am, the music I listen to, the shows, the whatever the fuck, the books I read, all these things. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I feel like this is where for me in the beginning of like the journey to become in my feminine energy and to truly lean into rest and flow and all these things, I didn't have a good example of what that looks like in everyday life. And because I know that I have felt that way, I guarantee you there are so many people who also can be in that same boat at that same camp, because it's very true. We see, and there are a few different people that I have found in my search for looking for someone to kind of not necessarily become like, but just have a good reference point, right? To just have a good reference point. I also feel like a lot of the women in my life, friends, family, they do operate more in their masculine, and I think a lot of women just naturally operate more in their masculine because A, feminism pushed women to operate in their masculine, and B, if you are a working woman, you some way, shape, or form are in your masculine. And so many people that I know, whether they're business owners or not, if you're working and you're not like a true and blue stay-at-home wife, mom, or whatever, like I really do think that you carry more of the masculine energy mode. And that's not to anyone's fault, but it's definitely because of the way that society has shaped us as women, right? So what I will say about all of that is, I'm going to go back to the balance piece because it's really important that I kind of nail this home for you. The balance piece of the masculine and feminine energy within yourself as a woman truly does look and feel different depending on what stage of life you're in, right? Like I've told y'all fucking ad nauseum at this point how becoming a mom truly has allowed me to step more into my feminine than my masculine, but I've always had a really good balance in my opinion up until I realized that I didn't. Right whenever I'm being asked out of this season of life to be more in my feminine, I really got to see firsthand like holy shit, I was not as balanced as I thought I was. So, as you know, I've told y'all so many fucking times now that we are in the era of rebirthing, right? I feel like a lot of the past year has been a lot of shedding, and we shed the few last pieces that needed to be shed before we stepped into the new year. And now it's kind of about the rebirth phase for me personally. And the feminine energy piece that I'm so hell bent on bringing to life in the form of Restfully Rich, my new container that I have, it really does come back to the fact that we have been doing life and business so much more in our masculine energy than we have in our feminine energy as women in the modern day world. Okay. When you're thinking of like, how do I step into my feminine? How do I step into the flow? How do I allow myself to receive more restfully and be in that more feminine state? And the first thing that I'm going to tell you is you have got to understand your own personal cycle. Okay. The foundation of all of this is understanding that we are operating as women in a um solar, it's not solar, maybe it is a solar cycle, a cyclical cycle, whatever that fucking word is. Basically a 24-hour day, a sun cycle, rise with the sun, set with the sun, because that's how men's hormones operate. Us as women, we operate on a 28-day lunar cycle, okay? And that is why so many women are sick, burnt out, stressed, broke, full of inflammation, like because it manifests physically. A lot of times, whenever we start to feel that stress and overwhelm, it always manifests itself physically. And I'm going to get to that point in a second because that is truly how and why I have shed 60 pounds pre pregnancy, is because I released all of that shit becoming a mom. Like I released everything that I was carrying that I didn't even necessarily know that I was carrying um, when I became a mom. But by operating in a society that does honor a male's hormone system, not system, my words are a little fucked off today, so bear with me. You're gonna get the point, but it just might not be the clearest speaking point. Um, but that is exactly what has happened to us as women, and especially like working women. We build these businesses and we say we're gonna be, female business owners. Great, but you're still operating in a fucking male dominated world, right? And even if we were to shift everything, and I fucking can't stand when people are like, "Oh my god, burn the patriarchy." You sound nuts. You sound crazy. Don't say that shit. Because we would still feel the same fucking way. We would have the same fucking issues, but it would be men feeling the issues instead of women if we had a matriarchy, right? Like if we had a feminine honored system. There is a book called The Language of Betterarchy. I cannot think of the author. Read that fucking book because it truly does lay out the fact that like it doesn't need to be this polar shift of matriarchy versus patriarchy. There is a beautiful balance of it both, and when you find that balance within yourself, it doesn't really necessarily matter what happens in the rest of the world. And that is so true with everything that I talk about with you guys is you do not have to demand the world to change in order for your life to change. It is taking, again, radical responsibility and radical self trust, radical self awareness, radical self esteem to be able to say, you know what? Fuck what the rest of the world is doing. I'm going to control my controllables, which is my own goddamn life. Okay. You cannot keep waiting for someone to come and rescue you, for someone to come and save you. Everything in your life starts to become better when you yourself take your own growth and wellness as a fucking priority, okay? Period. Period. But back to my original point is how do we do that in a world that caters more to the men's hormone cycle? And you've got to take your own power back by understanding your own cycle. We were not taught it in school. Our mothers didn't teach it to us. Our grandmothers didn't teach it to our mothers. We don't have a whole lot of knowledge. I didn't even know this, you're going to laugh. This has nothing to do with our cycle, but it does. I didn't know that I had two holes until I was like 16 years old. Okay. And that was well after the age that we went through puberty and all that shit, learning about our bodies in school. I wasn't taught about anything really by my mom. Um, Her mom didn't teach her a whole lot, and I didn't know anything about my own hormone cycle until I started working with my functional practitioner, what, like 4 or 5 years ago now? Crazy, right? Crazy. What majority of my life, excuse me, without a goddamn clue of how my body actually worked. And we are still uncovering so much about the woman's body. And the majority of all of these like chronic illnesses and, the all these things that are specifically happening with women like autoimmune diseases and things like that, it's because we don't live in a world that knows enough about women's bodies, or they do know enough but it's not something that we decide to teach other women about or each other about or even our fucking selves about, right? You want to see change in your life, you want to operate different, you've got to do different. And knowledge is power. So when you know more about you and your body and what is actually happening throughout an entire month with your body, that sets the stage for what you are and are not allowed to do for yourself. You know what I mean? What change can actually happen when you actually start to understand how you work in a flow state. So the first step is learning your cycle, understanding your cycle. Um, my reference point is always going to go back to my functional practitioner. Her name is Abby. If you have not listened to the podcast episode where I had her on the pod, don't remember what podcast episode it is, but scroll back to the beginning. I don't know, like before we get into like the 50th episode, before then. I will also link her Instagram below in the show notes so that you can go and check her out and peep her resources and all these things because she is a wealth of knowledge. And I learned everything that I know now about like my cycle and my hormones and everything through her. I really do think that she was such a staple point in me getting pregnant so relatively quick because I worked on my hormones and my body before I even like thought that I wanted to have kids. And I told her too, I was like, I don't really care. Like, does it really matter if my hormones are on point if I'm never going to have kids? And she was like, yeah, it does because how you are now, like, it's going to affect you later in life. Like, how well you take care of your hormones and your body now is going to affect how you are when you enter into menopause, which is another thing that no one fucking knows about or talks about as women. My a close person in my life is actually going through premenopause, and her and I were talking, and she was like, I have never, like, I don't even know anything about it. My mom never talked about it. It's the same fucking thing. But now we are the generation who's having to kind of like, okay, let's scream this fucking from the rooftop. So we teach the next generation how important that chapter of our life is, right? But anyways, so that's the first step into really stepping into your feminine energy. And especially as business owners and working women and all these things, like we live in a world where we don't get to really take the break that our bodies require of us to take. We like rest is such an integral part of our personal success. If you are not resting, you are literally fucking yourself so hard because rest is so key and crucial. We have an entire week where our body is begging us to sit the fuck down, drink some hot tea, read a book, learn how to crochet, whatever. Just sit the fuck down and chill, okay? Like it's such a crucial part of our well being, but we live in a world that doesn't allow us to do that, right? There are some countries, though, that I think women get time off whenever they're in their luteal phase, which you tell that to an, a specific type of American people, and they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, that's so fucking oppressive." Is it? Is it? No, it's not actually. It's allowing women to exist in the world in the way that they need to. And if you think back to even before we had like governments and systems and like our ancestors, women were treated very differently. They were honored and respected based on around their cycle, right? There wasn't this, oh my god, she's on her period. She's such a bitch right now. No, because you were allowed to restfully receive that we just don't have the luxury of doing so today in the societal way. But the beautiful thing is because of how modern our society is, you get to create exactly what it is that you desire to have, but only once you understand how your cycle and your hormones work. Because when you start to know which week out of the month is going to require you to be more resting and more relaxing and not have so much shit on your plate, then you can start to really utilize and optimize the rest of the month, right? So when you go into your ovulatory week, you are well rested, you are well nourished, and you're able to kick ass like you were meant to in that week's time. So, if we look at it from a business lens, an entrepreneurial lens, a whatever lens, you should not be doing big business shit in the week that you are required to rest the most. Period. Like, that is like rule number two. The first rule is know your cycle. Number two, don't do shit on the week that you are the lowest energy. Okay? Okay? Obviously, I'm not saying rot on the fucking couch, but I'm also saying you don't need to go and create all new offers, redo your entire business, start from the bottom up, like whatever. Like the big things that actually need a lot of your attention should not be done in that week. Now that I am a mom and a business owner, and I have multiple other things going on behind the scenes, and I'm also a wife, and I have friends that I like to keep around and check in on and have in my life and spend time with. I truly and honestly was able to actually enjoy my life as a whole when I started to implement the restful week, right? But how it looks for me is the weeks that I'm required to rest and actually take care of myself, I do a whole lot of prep the week before. I make sure that I have like my meals planned out, my dinners planned out. They're very simple and low effort meals, but they're still like high nourishing, high impact. It's not a whole bunch of shit because what you put in your body, you will get out. So be mindful of what you put into your body. This is coming from an ex Taco Bell addict, so I know what the fuck I'm talking about. um, Also, dude, why are Taco Bell's cheese quesadillas the best on the market? I think it's that sauce they put on there, dude. I could drink it with a straw. I haven't had it in, I don't know, fucking almost 2 years. So I don't know. Maybe it tastes like shit now because I haven't had it so long. But anyways, I'm very mindful of the food that I'm going to be having. I'm very mindful of my workload going into the week. So I try to make sure that all of my tasks that need like a lot of my energy and attention are not happening on that week. I don't schedule anything that really can't be rescheduled, you know? So I don't do any of my like crazy appointments or any interviews or speaking events or anything during that time. I don't normally have any calls scheduled that week with anybody. Yeah, those are just very few simple things that I do personally. And inside of Restfully Rich, we actually build a game plan for you. That's what's going to make the most sense for you based on your cycle. We do a lot of cycle awareness inside of Restfully Rich. We actually have a few key component pieces inside Restfully Rich where we are learning and implementing things about our cycle because it is such a crucial, important thing that I could not have it inside of this program. When I'm teaching you how to become restfully rich, we've got to start with the basics, which is your cycle. So again, I'm speaking very specifically to me, but inside of Restfully Rich, we speak very specifically to you, okay? And what makes the most sense for your life. Because if you're new here, I do not do cookie cutter shit. And the same sentiment is inside of Restfully Rich because I refuse to sit here and coach and mentor and teach things from a I know what's best lens. I am all about coaching and mentoring women through their own power and their own energy, their own personalities, their own everything. And that means also having the awareness that I know I cannot coach and mentor everyone, but the people who I can are ones that are number one, willing to own their own power. I do not coach women who are just looking for someone else to fix shit for them because that's not the vibe. You've got to take your own responsibility. You've got to take your own power. You've got to take your own livelihood back into your own hands. And I am simply just guiding you through that power shift of taking it back for yourself. So please check out Restfully Rich if you have not already. Applications are still open. It is a 4-month container. It's something like you will not find on the market. This is a very intimate and different way of coaching that you have never been inside of before. Do not think of your typical coaching program because we aren't doing things that way because we're requiring different results, right? And as someone who, like I've told y'all before, I haven't signed a single new client in all of 2025, and I had my most abundant fucking year to date. And I've been in business for 7 years. It's because I'm leaning more into my Restfully Rich era, right? And I'm teaching others how to do so as well inside of Restfully Rich. And that's not because anything special or lucky happened. It's because I finally said, like, yo, we are not trying to do things the way that we've been doing things because it hasn't fucking worked. And not for lack of trying, because yo girl tried. Oh, did she try? I can't even tell you how much time, money, and energy I invested in the past 7 years into growing and scaling and becoming better and all these things. And not to say that I didn't learn and become different through all those things, but when I finally stopped listening to the outside noise and listened to myself and actually got clear on like what would make the most sense, that's when things started actually happening for me. That's when doors started opening for me. That's when opportunities landed in my fucking lap because that is how life gets to be. You just have to make the decision that that's what you desire as well. Okay. And it starts with understanding how you operate in your own feminine energy. Okay. You don't have to be flowers and daisies and butterflies and lighthearted and ditzy and ditzy's not the right word, but like you know what I mean? Like you don't know what fucking time it is, what day it is, like whatever image you have in your mind of what feminine energy looks like, I'm saying it doesn't have to be that in order for it to apply to you. And I am a walking example of that. I am. And I'm only going to continue to evolve and to grow and to become even more balanced than I already am between both of my masculine and feminine energy. And I'm taking you along for the ride. But that felt really important to share here because, like I told you, on my quest to finding a reference point, couldn't find one. So I know for a fact that means that I just have to step on the stage and be that reference point. So, hi, hello, you're welcome. We are here. We are changing shit up for the better, and we are about to become even more restfully rich. And I will see you next time. Bye! I'm so grateful that you tuned in today. If this episode activated something in you, share it with a bestie who's also ready to become limitless. And don't forget to leave a review to help more people find this space. Wanting more? Get on my email list and subscribe to my YouTube channel for exclusive downloads, mindset shifts, and behind the scenes magic that I only share there. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, keep trusting the pull, honoring your energy, and manifesting your most abundant life.